It was a cold Wednesday afternoon, and I remember it very clearly. I had been having problems with the kitchen sink for a few weeks. The leak had started as a small drip, but quickly got worse. I didn't know what else to do, so I finally called a plumber to come out. Take a look. His name was Alex. I didn't know him before, but I had heard he was good at what he did. So I thought it would be a quick fix. When he arrived, I opened the door and, well, I was a little surprised. He was a lot younger than I expected, probably among the 30 and 40 years old, and he was also handsome, tall with a strong build and broad shoulders. I greeted him warmly and took him to the kitchen where the leak was. Now, I admit I had put on a nice robe that morning. Nothing too revealing, just something light and comfortable. But when I saw the way Alex looked at me for a moment, I couldn't help but feel a little spark. As Alex got to work under the sink, I found myself standing nearby, watching him. I don't know why, but there was something about him. Maybe it was the way he moved so confidently and self-assured, or maybe it was the fact that I hadn't had company in a while. Whatever it was, I could feel something stirring inside me. I started chatting with him, asking him how his day had been, how long he had been a plumber, things like that. He was polite to me. He responded without looking up too much, but I noticed that his voice sounded a little nervous, almost like he was trying to concentrate on work and not on me. It was really cute. I couldn't help but smile. At one point, I reached out and touched his shoulder, just a little. The slight squeeze was innocent enough, but I could feel him stiffen under my hand. "You're really strong," I said, congratulating him. Although I knew he probably felt a little uncomfortable, he looked at me a little surprised. But I gave him a soft smile. He moved, trying to get away, but I wasn't ready to let him go yet. I moved closer, pretending to be interested in the work he was doing. "Do you need help?" I asked, knowing full well he didn't need it. I adjusted my robe just a little, letting it slide slightly off my shoulder. Alex didn't say anything, but I could see his face turn, red as he tried to concentrate on the pipes below the sink. I leaned next to him, and as I did, my hand brushed his arm. He tensed again, but I didn't move away. There was a charge in the air now, something electric, and I knew he could feel it too. I stood up slowly, moving even closer to him. He was still crouched under the sink, trying his best to ignore the tension between us. But I wasn't willing to let it go so easily. I waited until he stood up to pick up his tools, and it was then when I made my move. I leaned close enough for him to feel my breath on his neck. "Is there anything else you can help me with?" I asked in a soft but somewhat sharp voice. He looked at me with wide eyes, but at first, he didn't say anything. I realized he was trying to figure out how to respond, so I gave him a little push. I literally let my hand slide up his arm, giving him just the right touch to make sure he understood where this was going. And then, without waiting for him to respond, I leaned over and kissed him on the cheek. It wasn't bold at first, not just a soft and tender kiss, but I could feel him freeze, and I knew I had crossed the line. He stood up quickly, almost crashing into the cabinets, and I could see the panic in his eyes. "Madam, I'm just here to fix the sink," he stuttered with a shaky voice. I couldn't help but laugh softly. "Are you sure there isn't nothing more to fix?" I asked, mocking him now. I moved again, my lips just centimeters from his. I could see him trying to figure out what to do, if he should stay or run. His hands were shaking as he tried to pack up his tools. "Is there something more that you could take care of for me?" I whispered, leaning in. Feeling a little disappointed, I knew he wasn't going to give in. He was nervous, packing his things as fast as he could. I watched him leave, feeling a little excited for the whole encounter. I didn't expect him to go that far, but it was fun to push him. Maybe the next time, though, who knows? I let him go that day, but there was something about the way he left. It wasn't just awkwardness, there was tension hanging in the air. And I knew that even though Alex had said no, it wasn't because he wasn't interested. It was like he was holding back, stuck between making it right and giving in. I could see it in his eyes, in the way he hesitated before leaving, as if he wanted to stay but didn't trust himself to handle the situation. Days went by, and he couldn't stop thinking about it. Every time he passed by the sink, he remembered how nervous he got when I touched his arm, the way his breathing changed when I kissed him on the cheek. It was exciting. It had been a long time since I had felt something like that with someone, especially with someone younger. To be honest, I didn't think I'd see him again. I thought he probably told himself he wouldn't come back after what happened. But then, about a week later, my phone rang. I didn't recognize the number, but when I answered, it was Alex. "Hi, I'm Alex the plumber. I was just calling to check if everything is okay with the sink repair, he said. His voice was polite, professional even, but I could hear the slight tremor beneath it. I smiled to myself. Oh, Alex, how nice of you to call, I said, trying to keep my tone casual, although I knew exactly where this could be going. You know, it's funny how you ask. The sink is fine, but there is another problem in the bathroom that I was hoping you could look at. It's probably nothing major, but I wouldn't feel good about not asking a professional to look at it. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could hear him weighing his options, deciding if he should come back. I can be there in about an hour, he said finally. When I hung up, I couldn't help but feel a small surge of emotion. This time, I had no intention of letting him go so easily. I knew he felt something, even if he was trying to ignore it, and I was determined to get things to go a little further. This time, when Alex arrived, he was visibly more nervous than the first time. His usual confident attitude was still there, but I could feel the hesitation. "Where's the bathroom?" he asked me, looking around like he was trying to focus on anything but me. I took him upstairs, and sure enough, there was a small problem with the faucet. It wasn't dripping, but the handle had come loose. He knelt down to check it. This time, he was completely focused on the work, but I could tell he was more aware of my presence than ever. I stayed right behind him, watching him work but not saying anything at first. The silence between us was heavy, dense with an unspoken tension. Finally, I couldn't resist anymore. "Alex," I said softly, "I've been thinking about you." I paused for a moment, his hand gripping the faucet a little tighter. "You have?" he asked, his voice cautious, as if he wasn't sure if he should acknowledge what had happened before. I couldn't stop thinking about what happened last time. I said, stepping a little closer. "You seemed interested, but you held back. Why was that?" He didn't answer at first, but I could see his knuckles turning white as he worked on the faucet. "I'm a professional," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Wouldn't it be okay?" I asked, getting so close. "Here's your text with punctuation added, keeping the original sentences intact." I could practically feel the heat emanating from him. "Who says what's right or wrong, Alex? You're an adult man, and I am an adult woman. We both know that there is something here. Something between us. You can feel it." I watched him closely, waiting for his reaction. His breathing had accelerated, and his hands were shaking slightly as he finished, tightening the handle of the faucet. He stood up and turned to look at me, and I could see the conflict in his eyes. He was trying so hard to stay professional, to keep that distance between us, but I knew he was fighting it. "You don't have to fight it," I whispered, moving even closer, my hand lightly brushing against his chest. I could feel his racing heartbeat under my fingers. "No one has to know. Here, it's just you and me." He looked at me with his jaw clenched, and for a moment, I thought he would turn around and walk away again. But then, without warning, he reached out and grabbed me by the arm. His grip was intense. "This is not a—" "I never said it was a game," I replied, my lips curving into a smile. I could feel the tension between us crackling like electricity. But it doesn't have to be complicated either. Sometimes you just need to let yourself go. He hesitated for a second longer, but then without saying another word, he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't the hesitant kiss on the cheek from last time. This was different. It was deeply passionate, as if all the restraint he had been holding onto had finally broken. I kissed him back, my arms wrapping around his neck, pulling him closer. For a few moments, the rest of the world seemed to disappear. There was only Alex, his hands gripping my waist, his lips on mine, and the heat between us that had been boiling for days. When we finally broke apart, both of us were breathing heavily. "Alex," I whispered, my voice barely more than a breath. He looked at me, his eyes searching mine for something, but I smiled and took a step back. Just enough to give him some space, but not too much. "I think you know the answer to that. Alex, we've already crossed the line. Why stop now? Wow." He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. With one last look at the door, he reached for me again, and this time, there was no hesitation or doubt. This time we were both completely into it, and neither of us was going to back down. Let me tell you, the rest of that afternoon was something else. Let's just say the bathroom wasn't the only thing that got done that day. That afternoon, it was something I hadn't experienced in a long time. As soon as Alex kissed me, all the tension, all the unspoken desire between us, exploded into something that neither of us could stop. He pulled me closer, his hands running along my back while his lips pressed against mine. Now more confident, more intense, I could feel the weight of everything he had been holding back. At first, we didn't even leave the bathroom. He gently pushed me against the wall, his hands everywhere, my shoulders, my waist, my hips. His touch was firm but still respectful, like he was letting go of control but didn't want to overstep boundaries. But I didn't care. I didn't want him to hold back anymore. I wanted this as much as he did. His lips moved from my mouth to my neck, and I let out a soft gasp. He paused, like he was checking to make sure I was okay with everything that was happening. When I didn't stop him, he continued his kisses. They became more urgent, more needy. It was as if all the time I had spent denying this moment had built into something neither of us could resist. But in the end, we had to stop, even if it was just to catch our breath. We stayed there, pressed against each other, both panting as if we had run a marathon. His forehead rested against mine, and for a second we were both silent, just taking in what had happened. "I've never done anything like that," Alex murmured, his voice low and hoarse. "I shouldn't have done it." I put my hand on his chest, feeling his heart race under his shirt. "There's nothing wrong with letting go sometimes, Alex. We're adults. We can do whatever we want." I smiled softly, trying to ease the guilt I could see creeping into his expression. He chuckled, but it was a nervous laugh. "You make it seem so simple." "It is simple," I insisted, backing away slightly, though I kept my hand on him. "You've been holding back. Why?" "Because of some invisible line between what's right and what's wrong. Sometimes you just have to follow what feels right." He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. With one last look at the door, he reached for me again, and this time, there was no hesitation or doubt. This time we were both completely into it, and neither of us was going to back down. Let me tell you, the rest of that afternoon was something else. Let's just say the bathroom wasn't the only thing that got done that day. That afternoon, it was something I hadn't experienced in a long time. As soon as Alex kissed me, all the tension, all the unspoken desire between us, exploded into something that neither of us could stop. He pulled me closer, his hands running along my back while his lips pressed against mine. Now more confident, more intense, I could feel the weight of everything he had been holding back. At first, we didn't even leave the bathroom. He gently pushed me against the wall, his hands everywhere, my shoulders, my waist, my hips. His touch was firm but still respectful, like he was letting go of control but didn't want to overstep boundaries. But I didn't care. I didn't want him to hold back anymore. I wanted this as much as he did. His lips moved from my mouth to my neck, and I let out a soft gasp. He paused, like he was checking to make sure I was okay with everything that was happening. When I didn't stop him, he continued his kisses. They became more urgent, more needy. It was as if all the time I had spent denying this moment had built into something neither of us could resist. But in the end, we had to stop, even if it was just to catch our breath. We stayed there, pressed against each other, both panting as if we had run a marathon. His forehead rested against mine, and for a second we were both silent, just taking in what had happened. "I've never done anything like that," Alex murmured, his voice low and hoarse. "I shouldn't have done it." I put my hand on his chest, feeling his heart race under his shirt. "There's nothing wrong with letting go sometimes, Alex. We're adults. We can do whatever we want." I smiled softly, trying to ease the guilt I could see creeping into his expression. He chuckled, but it was a nervous laugh. "You make it seem so simple." "It is simple," I insisted, backing away slightly, though I kept my hand on him. "You've been holding back. Why?" "Because of some invisible line between what's right and what's wrong. Sometimes you just have to follow what feels right." That made him smile, and he stood up. He grabbed his tools and slung the bag over his shoulder. But before he left, he turned to me one last time. "Margaret, I don't regret it. I just want you to know that." I didn't answer, only smiled softly, watching as he opened the door. And just like that, he left. I sat there for a while after he was gone, thinking about what had happened. It was one of those rare moments in life when everything lined up perfectly, without guilt, without shame. Just two people letting go of their inhibitions for a little while. In the following days, I thought about him from time to time. I wondered if he thought about me too, but I didn't call him back. There was no need. That afternoon had been exactly what it should be. A moment of escape. A reminder that I was still very much alive, still capable of feeling emotion, desire, and spontaneity. And as for Alex, I hoped he left feeling the same. Sometimes, it only takes an unexpected connection to realize that life doesn't have to be lived within rigid boundaries. Perhaps he returned to his routine, fixing pipes and working as he had always done. Or maybe, just maybe, that afternoon gave him something extra. A new way of seeing things. A way of letting go when the time was right. Whatever it was, I knew he wouldn't forget it. And who knows? Maybe the next time something breaks in this house, I'll call him. Or maybe I'll just let fate decide. But for now, I'll cherish that little adventure for what it was. Something unexpected, something beautiful, and something that reminded me, even at 64 years old, that life is still full of surprises.